They told the Philippines their version of English was too gentle, too warm, too non-native to ever command a global audience. They were wrong. Today, the subtle, clear rhythm of Filipino English is not just recognized, it's quietly dominating American media, becoming the preferred voice for millions of viewers, digital devices, and newsrooms across the United States. You might hear it every day without knowing its origin. It's the smooth, balanced, and perfectly articulated tone that anchors major networks and narrates documentaries. The influence is undeniable, but the story of how a language born from a colonial project became a powerful engine of global communication is one of the greatest, most overlooked cultural victories of the 21st century. Our story begins over 100 years ago, not with conquest, but with teaching. When the United States colonized the Philippines in the early 1900s, they sent thousands of American teachers, famously known as the Thomasites, to establish a nationwide English education system. The goal was to create a populace that could communicate seamlessly with American administrators. The result was a successful linguistic blueprint, but Filipinos, masters of adaptation and discard, didn't just copy the language, they perfected it. They took the structure of American English and filtered it through their own deeply respectful and melodic native tongues. This unique linguistic evolution resulted in a sound that possesses two critical qualities for mass media clarity and emotional neutrality. Unlike many regional American dialects, which feature heavy vowel shifts, fast pacing, and pronounced regional slang, Filipino English maintains a consistent, steady articulation. Vowels are pronounced cleanly, consonants are crisply enunciated, and the overall intonation is relatively flat and measured. These qualities, which might have once been dismissed as remnants of a learned language, are now precisely the assets the world is paying a premium for. In an era of divided attention and deep political polarization, Filipino English offers audiences something essential: trust and clarity. This trust was first monetized in the early 2000s during the Great Call Center boom. American companies outsourced customer service to the Philippines in droves, initially seeking cheap labor. What they discovered was gold. American customers consistently rated Filipino agents higher than their domestic counterparts. The reason wasn't just politeness, it was the voice itself. Filipino agents spoke with an inherent warmth, a non-aggressive tone, and an unparalleled commitment to perfect, deliberate enunciation. It wasn't just about speaking English, it was about sounding like a friend who genuinely wants to solve your problem. The call center floor became the proving ground where Filipino English was unconsciously certified as the global standard English for connection and empathy. The success in the call center industry was the spark, but the true acceleration came from the need for neutrality in American news. Newsrooms, desperate to connect with a fragmented, multi-ethnic audience, needed voices that could be authoritative without sounding regional. A heavy Southern accent, a thick Northeastern rhythm, or a specific West Coast cadence can often alienate large portions of the national audience, triggering regional biases or making comprehension difficult for non-native speakers. Filipino English, by virtue of its origins, solves this problem instantly. The voice carries a clean, non-regional articulation that listeners perceive as global and objective. Specifically, the Filipino pronunciation of consonants like t, d, l, and r often avoids the subtle swallowing or shifting that happens in fast-paced American speech. For example, the L and R sounds are often articulated more distinctly, and the flat, predictable intonation ensures a steady delivery of information. This isn't just theory. Producers and hiring managers have admitted that they actively seek out anchors and voiceover artists whose speech patterns fall into this neutral zone. Filipino anchors who land major roles are seen as embodying this ideal of clear, unbiased delivery. They bring authority without aggression. Furthermore, this clean speech pattern is critical in the rapidly evolving world of artificial intelligence. AI companies, particularly those developing virtual assistants, navigation systems, and synthetic newsreaders, require speech models that are predictable and easy to process across massive global data sets. Training AI on a hyper-regional dialect creates confusion. Training it on Filipino English provides a consistent, middle-ground accent that bridges Western and Asian phonetic structures. The voices you hear guiding you through a GPS app, or reading a simplified news summary, are often built upon the precise phonetic structure of the Filipino accent. The AI voice that speaks to billions is secretly trained on the rhythm of the Philippines. This quiet cultural influence is an incredible act of linguistic soft power. For decades, the Philippines was a recipient of cultural influence, adapting to American music, film, and language. Now, the tables have turned. The West is subtly adapting to a Filipino standard of vocal delivery. This shift demonstrates that the most effective form of communication is not the loudest or the most traditional, it's the kindest, clearest, and most universally comprehensible. This move from the customer service cubicle to the national news desk is a silent revolution happening right under our noses, changing the sound of American media one perfectly pronounced word at a time.
The success of Filipino English extends far beyond the newsroom and into specialized fields where clarity is paramount. Consider the millions of American students who now take online education courses. A huge percentage of these tutors and educators are Filipino. They teach English, math, science, and specialized vocational skills to students across the globe. When these young Americans learn pronunciation, grammar, and fluency from their Filipino tutors, they are unconsciously adopting the same smooth, balanced rhythm. This creates a cultural feedback loop. The Filipino rhythm is taught to the next generation of American professionals, who then carry that sound into their own careers in media, law, and business. This phenomenon is also affecting Hollywood. Dialogue coaches working on films aimed at a massive international audience often train actors to use a softer, less regional accent, a style sometimes called global cinematic English. This required style emphasizes precise, non-aggressive articulation and clear delivery, mirroring the core characteristics of Filipino English. The goal is to make dialogue comprehensible everywhere, from London to Jakarta. By seeking this universal sound, the film industry is indirectly validating the Filipino accent as the most universally effective. Let's examine the deeper psychological appeal. Why do audiences respond so strongly to this tone? It comes down to respect and sincerity. The Filipino way of communicating is inherently deferential and warm, a cultural carryover from concepts like pakikisama and hiya. This politeness is embedded in the vocal delivery. When a Filipino anchor delivers a serious news story, the underlying tone is one of empathy and calmness, which in a high-stress media environment is incredibly soothing. It builds an immediate sense of connection that pure, sterile American broadcast voice often fails to achieve. Viewers don't just hear the facts, they feel heard. They feel respected. This powerful emotional connection is exactly why more and more American content creators, from high-end YouTube documentarians to major advertising agencies, are actively seeking out Filipino voice actors to narrate their projects. They've realized that the Filipino voice sells not because it's cheap, but because it feels human, trustworthy, and authentic. In the crowded digital landscape, where everyone is trying to shout for attention, the voice that speaks with quiet confidence and warmth is the one that ultimately wins. This shift highlights a profound realization: the global audience is tired of the traditional, aggressive media voice and is actively seeking a voice that speaks with emotional intelligence.
The journey of Filipino English from a colonized language to a global broadcast standard serves as a powerful testament to the resilience and adaptability of the Filipino people. It is the ultimate act of linguistic alchemy, transforming a colonial tool into an instrument of cultural power. For so long, the Philippines has adapted to the world. Now, the world is subtly adapting to the Philippines. This cultural reversal is one of the most inspiring stories of the modern era. It also forces a reevaluation of what constitutes proper English. For years, the standard was defined by nations where English was the mother tongue, the UK and the US. But as globalization accelerated, the need for a truly pluricentric English, a language owned by many nations, became clear. Filipino English, uniquely positioned as a bridge between American and Asian speech patterns, has emerged as a leading contender for this neutral global standard. It functions efficiently in a wide array of international contexts, from multinational boardrooms to university lecture halls in Europe. It is, in essence, an efficient operating system for global dialogue. This realization has major implications for national identity. For decades, many Filipinos felt pressure to minimize their natural accent, aiming for a pure American or British sound. The growing demand for and appreciation of their natural tone is a massive victory for cultural self-respect. It validates the unique, refined form of English developed in the islands, proving that their voice is not merely acceptable. It is, in many contexts, superior for global communication. Every news producer who hires a Filipino anchor, every AI firm that trains on Filipino speech data, sends a clear message: your voice is the sound of the future. This confidence trickles down into every aspect of Filipino society, reinforcing the value of their education system and their proficiency in English. It transforms a perceived weakness and non-native accent into an undeniable strength. It provides a new source of national pride that is separate from traditional sources like sports or entertainment. This is intellectual and cultural power defined by eloquence and clarity. The Philippines didn't have to change its voice to be heard. The world had to adjust its expectations to listen to a voice that simply speaks better.
The story of Filipino English is a masterclass in quiet influence. They didn't achieve global dominance through political might or aggressive marketing. They did it through the simple, consistent power of genuine human connection and technical clarity. The qualities that make the accent perfect for broadcast: the measured pace, the distinct articulation, the underlying tone of deference and respect are all extensions of core Filipino cultural values. Language, in this case, became the ultimate ambassador for the national character. As we look ahead, this influence is only set to grow. With global media becoming more decentralized and multicultural, the demand for voices that can speak to everyone will continue to rise. Filipino English is perfectly positioned to fill this void, evolving into a de facto global accent for clarity, authority, and emotional balance. Whether it is a voice assistant reading a weather report, a podcaster narrating a historical documentary, or a news anchor delivering breaking international news, the smooth, measured rhythm of the Philippines will be there, working its quiet magic. So the next time you turn on an American news segment or interact with a digital assistant, listen closely. You are witnessing a profound cultural phenomenon: the rise of Filipino English. It is a subtle, yet unstoppable force that has crossed oceans and entered the very heart of global media communication. It is a story about language, yes, but fundamentally, it is a story about identity, hard work, and the victory of clarity and warmth over regional bias. The Philippines gave the world a voice that felt universal, and in return, the world finally began to listen. The sound of confidence, respect, and unparalleled clarity is shaping the 21st century broadcast, one perfectly enunciated word at a time.